Welcome into another Locked On NBA Insider Report. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens, joined by Sirius XM host and our Locked On Insider, Antonio Daniels. We talked a little bit about this last week. We saw it coming, but now it's officially official. The Lakers are out of the playoffs. They didn't make that play-in tournament. They've struggled all season long. How did a team that's built, for a championship get to this point? Was it just the injuries, Antonio?
No, I don't think this team was built for a championship.
Okay.
I think what we look at, or what people look at, is the names.
Right.
And I know for me, it's not about the names, it's about the fit. I'm a big Russell Westbrook fan. I covered Russell 4 years when I was with the OKC Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that didn't work for me was, again, it's not about the name, not putting Russell Westbrook alongside LeBron James, alongside Anthony Davis, is how does Russell Westbrook's skill set complement what LeBron James and Anthony Davis need? And it didn't. Who would have thought that we sit here in April and the Lakers' best season off-season acquisition was Malik Monk, because of his skill set and the way that he actually played alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So I never felt like this team was built for a championship. Were they built to be entertaining? Yes. They were built to be entertaining, because when you have 5 first ballot Hall of Famers, you're going to be entertaining. You're in LA. The lights are brighter. I get it. But when you look at it and you break it down, the skill sets didn't complement one another like they did when they won the championship in the bubble a couple of years back. Because you don't have the Alex Carusos. You don't have the KCPs. You don't have the Kyle Kuzmas. You don't have the Rajon Rondos. Guys that were stars within their role. So that team that won a championship was a mix of blue-collar guys that were willing to do the dirty work alongside the white-collar guys that were known as stars, the Anthony Davises and the LeBron James. This team didn't really possess those blue-collar guys that you needed to be successful.
And when you build a team like that, obviously those aren't the sexy guys, because you're just like, they're filling their role, but that's what you need to win. So with this positioning that they're currently in, they've got their big names, but, or at least for now, how do they have the space or, the draft
flexibility
to try to do this? I don't think they can, right?
No. And that's the issue that you run into when you start adding and acquiring so many stars, because what comes with stars is contracts.
Yeah.
What comes with stars in contracts is lack of financial flexibility. Right. So you look at what LeBron James is getting alongside with what Anthony Davis is getting. Russell Westbrook will be the highest paid player in the league next year. So you put all that together. Now, how much flexibility as far as cap space is concerned do you have moving forward? That becomes your issue, because what you saw this year, guys like Malik Monk was on a minimum, a vet minimum. Guys like Carmelo Anthony, guys like Kent Bazemore, all these guys chose to come to LA to take less money. So now that you see that it didn't work this year, the question that you ask yourself is, how appealing is it now? Like, if they would have won the championship this year, it would be easy to get guys to buy in and come in and take less. But when this team didn't even make the play-in tournament, let alone the playoffs, now it's different to ask someone to take less money to come play in LA. It's different. When you are a championship caliber and you are winning and there's a winning culture that's involved there, it's easier to get guys to come in and take less money. That's going to be something that's very difficult to do this summer for the LA Lakers.
And a lot of, those players that come there and play for less money, they're doing it because they're getting recruited. LeBron's going out there, getting his friends to come over. Anthony Davis is a draw for some people just because of his size and whatnot. But we don't know what LeBron, he has another year on his deal, but his future seems like it's always kind of in flux, right? Like, he's obviously still very dominant on the court, but is that draw still there to go play with him when the rest of his team's in shambles?
I think it depends on the skill set that you possess. Okay. Because I know if I was a knockdown shooter, I would love to go play with LeBron. Like, if I'm Duncan Robinson, if I'm Joe Harris, you know what I mean? If I'm these kind of guys, you go back and look at teams that were built around LeBron James. The guys that were successful and the teams that were successful is guys that didn't need the ball, or they were catch and shoot or catch and finish guys. You go back and look at Miami, where they had Mike Miller and they had Shane Battier and Ray Allen and Mario Chalmers. And then in Cleveland, they had Kyle Korver and J.R. Smith. And then Kevin Love became a knockdown shooter. You know what I mean? When you go and look at guys that are around LeBron James, if you're a catch and shoot or catch and finish guy, I'll be on the first bus there. I will be on the first bus there. Now, the question you ask yourself is how many of these guys are available? How many of these guys are actually available and will want to take less? Because what we've seen is that premium of being a shooter is the most valued asset in today's NBA. When you go out and you give Duncan Robinson 90 and you give Davis Bertans 80 plus and you give Joe Harris 75, 80 plus, that means there is a premium on the ability to shoot the basketball. So if you're a knockdown shooter, it's tough to ask that guy to come to LA and take far less when there are other teams out there that will dish out far more because you're a knockdown shooter.
They'll pay you more, and you might have a better chance or an easier chance of, making a deep playoff run because you're not starting from necessarily so far back. When we look to the future of this team next year, the year after, is LeBron going to be on it for much longer? Are they really looking at like they might need to rebuild this?
That's a great question. And I think that's the big question.
Yeah.
What this team will look like next year, because the question that I continue to hear and the question I continue to ask is there a coach out there where if you have this same exact roster, and obviously you can move a couple pieces out, Malik Monk, he'll warrant more money. He'll warrant more money. But the centerpieces being LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook. Is there a coach out there that can bring this thing together and make it look like many people thought it would look at the start of the season? That's the big question. You'll hear different names thrown around. You'll hear they need an offensive coach. Maybe you go and you look at somebody like Mike D'Antoni. Maybe a coach that they can relate to. You go out and you get somebody like Mark Jackson. So you'll hear different coaches' names that are thrown around. The question that I ask is that coach present? Is that coach present out there to tie this whole thing together? Because, again, we're not talking about a team that made a playoff run and then got eliminated in the first round, or a team that made a playoff run and got eliminated in the Western Conference Finals. We are talking about a team that struggled throughout the course of this season and didn't even make the play-in tournament. So what that basically says is there's some work that really needs to be done.
What's the biggest need as of right now? Is it coaching, or is it kind of figuring out where LeBron's head is at, or is it just trying to get some better? Okay.
I think it's chemistry. And I think that's the most underrated aspect in the NBA is chemistry. Guys whose skill set complement one another. There was rumors last year of the Lakers possibly acquiring somebody like Buddy Hield last year. Now, Buddy Hield is not the player that Russell Westbrook is, but he's a better fit.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the chemistry is the big piece with the Los Angeles Lakers right now. Not just trying to go out and acquire big names, but acquire names and guys whose skill set can complement what LeBron James and Anthony Davis need to be successful moving forward.
And then we haven't talked much about Anthony Davis. Obviously, was in New Orleans where you were at, and now he's in LA. Is this kind of what he pictured when he got there? I know they got the one bubble championship, but now he's just been like not healthy, not playing all the time. Like what's going on?
Well, here's the thing. People forget how difficult it is to win a championship. And I can tell by the way you said like bubble, that's how a lot of people think of it. Like, oh, it's just a bubble championship.
Yes,
and
I'm speaking of
right. But a bubble championship is still a championship because somebody had to win it. Somebody had to win it. So do I think this is this what Anthony Davis had in mind? I do, because he went to LA to win a championship. And he won one. Yeah, he did. He got one. Like, no one saw a global pandemic at that time. No one knew the bubble was going to happen. No one saw COVID having an effect of the NBA that it's had over the last 2.5 seasons. Nobody saw that. Do I think Anthony Davis got what he pictured when he left New Orleans and forced his way out into LA? I do, because he won a championship. Now, a lot of the decisions that we make in life as a whole, even away from basketball, center around the present.
Right.
I don't know how far in advance that he thought, though.
Okay.
How much thought he put into what this may look like when LeBron James walks away.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because maybe what he pictured was maybe I can get 2 or 3 championships. I know he didn't picture not making a play-in tournament this season, because we saw different guys being interviewed this season and they thought they were built and constructed to win an NBA championship. So now, what does this team look like moving forward? Not just this year, but 2 years from now, when Anthony Davis is still in his prime and LeBron James is surfacing around 40 years old. Is he still there, or does he choose to leave and finish his career elsewhere? And if that's the case, do you bring in someone else alongside Anthony Davis? You know what I mean? So I think it's a lot that the Lakers need to figure out, not just for the immediate future, but for the big picture future as well.
Certainly, because they don't have those picks anymore. Those are in New Orleans and elsewhere. So they do have to start thinking about it now sooner than later, because it's going to be upon them before we know it. So a little more questions than answers for, I think, everybody, but we'll have to see what the Lakers end up doing. Antonio, thank you as always for your wisdom. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On NBA.